Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. You have all gathered here because your hearts are in search of understanding and knowing Allah. Your intention is to know and understand Allah. May Allah fulfill that intention for each of us. May He bring that search to fruition, to finalize that search, to move forward in that search. We must know that there's a difference between good and bad. We must know that evil exists and that good exists. We must know that there is a God, and we must know that there is illusion, that there is Maya, that there is heaven and that there is hell, that there is light and that there is darkness. And we must be able to differentiate the difference. Part of the problem that the world has is that people who haven't reached a level of wisdom can't differentiate what's true and what's false. So they are constantly working based on bad information, bad ideas, and bad suppositions. Because of that, they end up with inappropriate conclusions and inappropriate ideas. This leads to reacting to love with hate. This leads to being narcissistic in the midst of relationships. This results in having egocentric ideas that the self is the most important thing that there is, and the grandizement of the self is the most important thing that you can do. So it puts people in a state of competition all of the time, in a state of not being at ease, because everything leads to conflict and everything leads to some sort of an aggression against the self. The self can never be mollified enough. The self can never be given enough credit. The self can never be dealt with in a way that is sufficiently appropriate, which leads to resentment. And resentment leads to all kinds of phobias and all kinds of reactions that are other than wise. They're other than appropriate. They're other than right. They're other than understanding the nature of good and evil. If we continue on that path, we'll become lost. So we individually have to become centered into ourselves. We have to establish certitude into ourselves. We have to establish faith into ourselves. And this has to become very strong and very powerful, and it can't waver. As we establish a solid base within us, it becomes much easier to deal with what's outside of us. But again, if your focus is external, which is the focus of almost everyone who doesn't have wisdom, then it's very difficult to form real relationships because the internal portion of you where you truly exist is not involved in the relationship, is not involved in the situation. It's not an empathetic situation. People who are entirely externalized don't have empathy because they only see what's outside of themselves, and they have established inappropriate judgment as to what that outside should look like, and then they want it to be manipulated so that it conforms to their bizarre ideas and their bizarre expectations. When we are free of these and we turn inside and we don't look to the outside for our satisfaction, that's when we begin to change. Light and darkness, heaven and hell, right and wrong, all have to be understood. And if we don't understand them, then we will be caught in a trap of action and reaction as opposed to being in a situation where we have insight into what's going on, insight into what's real and what's not real. We need to be able to tell the difference between a human and a beast. We need to be able to tell the difference between what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. There are all of these opposites in the world. There's the light and the darkness, the heaven and the hell, the truth and the falsehood. And we have to be able to differentiate these opposites. But to one who can't differentiate these opposites, everything is the same. And there's a lot of that going on in the world right now. Everything is treated as if it has legitimacy. Everything is treated as if it is worthy of giving attention to, of paying attention to. You can't upset anybody. You have to stay within what's politically correct. You have to stay within what's a way of being that doesn't offend anyone. Well, if you're not offending anyone, then that means that you're not offending a lot of things that are wrong in the world, that you're refusing to take a stance against things that are inappropriate. And there has to be a part of you that knows the difference and is able to stand against that which is inappropriate. And if you can't do that, then you're lost in form and you're lost in confusing form and not understanding the truth behind form. The mind and desire deal with form. Desire sees, the mind then takes what is seen and forms an attachment to it. The infatuation that desire and the mind have for form becomes a kind of torpor. It's like alcohol. It changes your consciousness. You become obsessed with that which is external to you. You give it reality. You give it substance. You give it credence. The monkey can only imitate what it sees. That's its nature. The mind is full of 70,000 battalions of monkeys. So the mind sees all of these things going on and imitates every one of them. And what's interesting is, if you're in that mode, there's no end to it. Each battalion sees something else. Each monkey finds something else. And each of these things becomes fascinating, fascinating to the point that your consciousness is drawn into that, and you're in a constant state of being fascinated in a way that is torporous. Your mind becomes dull, and your ability to tell the difference between things becomes dull. It's a very dangerous situation. Illusion becomes our touchstone. Illusion becomes our reality. Our attachment to illusion becomes what we depend on. And you can't depend on illusion. Illusion only leads to heartbreak. So if you're constantly formulating hallucinatory ideas about what reality is, you are constantly going to be disappointed, and you are constantly going to be in a state of agitation, which will lead to various kinds of mental illnesses, mental problems. If everybody is against you in your mind, you internalize narcissism. I'm right and everybody's wrong. Everything I do is good and everything everybody else does is bad. That's the reaction to seeing that everybody's different than you, or that nobody agrees with you. All of a sudden, you're the only one who knows anything. And we've all met so many people who have that particular phobia, who have that particular way of going about their lives. If we attach ourselves to illusion, if we attach ourselves to infatuation with the world, if we attach ourselves to being fascinated by various things in the world, we'll end up in these torpors. And what happens is these torpors take you into a different state, like being an alcoholic. Alcoholics wake up in very strange places. Alcoholics wake up in places and they don't know how they got there. Well, when you're in the midst of a torpor, you're also going to wake up in very strange places. It's going to transport you to strange ideas and to strange places. And somehow you have to be able to let go of it. And how is it that we let go of it? We have to concentrate and try to find out what in fact is real in our life. God has no form. God has no color. God has no race. God has no religion. God has no torpor. God sees unity in everything. Well, if we see everything as different, if we qualify everything as to race or color or religion, if we don't see unity at all, but constantly differentiate between everything and create high and low status for everything, we are acting opposite to truth. And if we are acting opposite to truth, what is going to happen to the conclusions that we draw while we're in this state? They're going to be conclusions that are opposite to truth. And if we carry conclusions that are opposite to truth, where in fact does it take us? It takes us to places where we don't need to be. It takes us to hell as opposed to heaven. There's a transparency in divinity that doesn't exist in illusion. Illusion is opaque and clouded and difficult. Divinity is transparent and you can see through it, and it's easy because it's real and it's there. But illusion is there to make you confused. Illusion is there to cloud the mind. Illusion is there to take you away from being able to differentiate between what's right and what's wrong. To escape from illusion, we need wisdom. And how is it that we go about acquiring wisdom? Well, we have to look at the movie of our life. We have to look at the reels that we've established over the years. And we have to see what we've done and how we've done it. What have we done right and what have we done wrong? And we have to eliminate from our consciousness all of the wrong-headed ideas that we grew up believing in, all of the wrong-headed ideas that we held close, all of the wrong-headed ideas that have become our way of being. And it's when we begin to do this that we can begin to move forward in a way that we can concentrate on finding out what's true. And the key to finding out what's true is beginning to understand what is divine and what isn't. And what is it that's divine? What is it that transcends this world, transcends the ideas of this world, and transcends our own being? What is it that's beyond our worldly interaction? What is it that can allow us, while we are acting in the world, not to be of the world? What is it that allows us to be here and not be here at the same time? What allows us to be able to endure all of the difficulties that this world gives us, yet not react to all of those difficulties and be tormented and upset by those difficulties? That's the space that we have to find. We have to find how to endure without being tormented. We have to discover how to endure by understanding the true nature of our existence. And the true nature of our existence is such that we are here for a temporary period of time. And we can't treat it as if it's any more than a bubble that is capable of bursting at any second. And when we can accept that premise, hold on to that premise, become comfortable with that premise, and act and react within that premise, then the world means less to us. And when the world means less to us, we slowly begin to shift into truth. As we hold on to the world, we shift away from truth. As we believe in the world, we shift away from truth. So there's this sliding scale. You're either sliding towards the world or away from the world. And what happens is, when you can't tell the difference between right and wrong, the world usually wins. And the world thinks, and people think, that the world can somehow satisfy their needs. There's a story that Bawa tells about a sheikh who was very devout and had many students and was taking them on the right path. And because he was doing such good work, Satan became very much aware of him. And Satan came to him and he said, "You do such good work. You tell everybody about heaven and you tell everybody about the qualities of God. Do you know anything about hell?" And the sheikh said, "No, I've never seen it." He said, "Well, why don't you come with me and let me show it to you? Why don't you take a look at hell, and then at least you'll be able to know what it is that you're talking about, because you're talking about it now without any firsthand knowledge." The sheikh thought about it and agreed. And Satan took him to hell. And what he saw was beautiful maidens. He saw luscious landscapes. He saw what seemed to be divine foods. And he ate, and he made himself comfortable. And everything that he could think of was provided for him. And he spent a couple of days there like that. And Satan says, well, what do you think of hell now? And he says, if it seems to be pretty good. And Satan says, well, don't you want to stay here for a while? And he said, yes, I think I would. He said, well, in order to stay here, you have to sign a document that says that you have agreed to stay in hell. And then we have to present that to God, and then you'll be allowed to stay here. And the sheikh said, okay, and signed the document. As soon as he signed the document, everything turned. The food that looked so beautiful now all of a sudden was decayed. The women looked like demons. Everything was turned upside down, and it became beyond gross, beyond his ability to withstand. And what's the explanation? The explanation is this is, in fact, the same as the world. Everything that you see in the world looks good, but it's all decaying in front of your eyes. It just decays at such a slow pace that you don't notice it, but it's all decaying. And it has no reality to it. It has no substance to it. And if you fall in love with it, you're falling in love with hell, and you are asking for hell. The opposite to this story is the story of Rabia, who was a great female saint. And she said, I am not afraid of hell, and I don't desire heaven. Wow. I'm not afraid of hell, and I don't desire heaven. All I want is God. Now, God is beyond form. God is beyond our vision. God is beyond that which we can see. So she understood that that which we can see is elemental and a form and temporary. And she understood that the physical vision wasn't real. The physical vision was just of things that decay. So she knew that what she wanted was beyond her ability to comprehend at the moment, but was available if she could let go of everything that she did comprehend. So she knew that her path was to let go. And since she was letting go of everything, there was nothing to be afraid of because she wasn't holding on to anything. She wasn't afraid of losing anything. And so many of us are afraid of losing things in this world. We're afraid that we won't have them any longer. And because of that, we enter into relationships that become difficult and strained and toxic because of fear. We have to let go of fear. We have to let go of our needs. We have to let go of all it is that we hold on to, that we think will satisfy us, that comes from the elemental world. Again, God is without form. God is without shape. God is without substance as we know substance. God is without the elements. All of these things are created things. We are a merger of that which is created and that which is original. And we need to abandon that which is created and focus on that which is original. Love has no weight to it. It has no substance to it. It can't be measured. Compassion, mercy, justice, all of them don't have ways of being measured. They are beyond the ability that the world has to quantify things and explain things. We need to go into that space that is beyond worldly understanding. This is what's called transcendence. Bawa once described science as visual understandings combined with ignorance becomes science. We see and we formulate ideas, and we call that science. There is a space that is beyond science. There is a space beyond everything that we know. There is a space beyond all of the physical visions, the hearing and the smelling. There is a space that is beyond all of it. And we need to begin to comprehend that space somehow. That comes about through taking on the patience, the qualities, and the actions of God. Moses was walking on Mount Sinai towards the top to receive direction from God. Moses' wife was pregnant, and while he was walking on Mount Sinai, he was thinking about his pregnant wife and whether she would have difficulty in her delivery. God called to Moses. He said, Moses. Moses was deep in thought, didn't hear him. God called again, Moses. Moses was deep in thought and he didn't hear him. God called a third time, Moses. And Moses got out of his torpor and recognized that God was calling him. And God said to Moses, you are not with me. You're with your wife. Do you see that stone next to your right foot? Kick it. He kicked the stone, and the stone broke open. And there was a toad and a piece of grass and a few drops of water. God said, you see that toad, Moses? You didn't know it was there. I knew it was there, and I supplied it food and I supplied it water. Do you think I have abandoned your wife? Do you think that if you don't sit here and worry about your wife, this isn't going to be taken care of? Moses, understand that I take care of every one of my creations, that I protect every one of my creations, that I provide for every one of my creations. Do we worry about every little thing that we encounter? Do we worry about all of the things that happen to us and whether or not we can continue to move forward? Or have we the ability to let go of all of these things and move towards God? Have we the ability to let go and know that things will be taken care of without our absolute utmost involvement? That God is on our side, God is here to help us, and God is here to take care of us. A dog, no matter how much you feed it, will have its tongue out and saliva will be dripping, looking for more. And if you feed the dog all of the best foods, if you feed him from your own table, if you take him out into your garden, the first thing that he's going to do is run after feces and run after decayed things. This is the nature of the dog. We all have this dog within us. This is desire. Desire is that dog. And this dog is satisfied with low, horrid, decaying things. If we can recognize the difference between right and wrong, if we can recognize the difference between good and evil, then when this occurs, we'll be able to see what's happening and we won't follow that dog. But If we can't tell the difference between right and wrong, if everything looks the same to us, if we've adopted a world view that everything is okay, and a lot of the world, in this country especially, has adopted the view that everything is okay, then you will be constantly led astray. The mind sees and imitates. If you can't tell the difference between right and wrong, you will imitate the strangest things. You will imitate that which is inappropriate because you see it and you don't put judgment on it. You refuse to classify it. You refuse to say this isn't right. We have to learn how to say this isn't right. We have to have standards as to our being and as to who we are and as to what we will get involved in and what we will not get involved in. Only God's children will be allowed to enter into the kingdom of heaven. And who are God's children? The ones who are like God. So if you want entrance into truth, if you want entrance into that eternal light, you have to become like that eternal light. You have to take on the qualities of that eternal light. You can't keep the qualities that belong to the earth, that decay, that dissipate, and expect to be allowed into the kingdom of God. So we have to make that choice. We have to understand that killing is wrong. Our religion may say it's okay. It doesn't make it right. These are difficult things for people to acknowledge when authority figures in their life and authoritative institutions in their life try to lead them astray. People get led astray. And that's why religions have caused so many wars in this world, because people can't believe that their religion will lead them astray, but their religion can lead them astray. There is a transparency in divinity. This transparency does not exist in illusion. And when transparency doesn't exist, all kinds of reasoning has to come in place to somehow make it okay. It's okay because. It's okay because this happened, so this is now okay. That which seems to be forbidden is not forbidden except under these circumstances, and these circumstances have come about. It's not like that. That which is forbidden is forbidden. And you have to understand that that which is forbidden is forbidden. And we can't make excuses for ourselves or for anybody else. But if we can't tell the difference, if we can't see what's right and what's wrong, we will be led astray. So we have to have a very fundamental understanding of truth. Our certitude of our understanding in God's qualities has to be very strict, and it has to be constantly looked at, constantly analyzed, and constantly examined. We can't lead an unexamined life and expect ourselves to find reality. We can't lead an unexamined life and expect to transcend illusion. It doesn't happen like that. The teacher will give you the information and he will give you the example, and he will show you what it looks like. But somewhere along the line, you have to pick up the ball and run with it. You have to do it yourself. You have to take on his action. The teacher is there for you to become the teacher. He's not there to boss you around or to tell you what to do. He's there so that you can take him on, so that you can grab what is his and make it yours, which he offers willingly. He came to give you himself. He came to give you that which is truth. And you have to have the courage to take it. But you also have to have the qualities that can hold it. If you don't have love, you can't have justice. If you don't have peace, you can't have contentment. If you don't have kindness, you can't take on the qualities of God. If you don't see unity, you're going to have prejudices. If you see differences, you're going to have exclusions. If you have exclusions, you can't find unity. If you can't find unity, there's no place for you in God's kingdom. So, as we go in this huge circle of our life, we have to rest upon that which is real. And we have to begin to accept what is real and to deny what is false, which means that we have to be able to differentiate. And if we can't differentiate, we can't tell the difference. And if we can't tell the difference, then we are doomed to repeating mistakes over and over and over because we haven't excluded anything from our experiential references. And we have to exclude things. We have to exclude things that give us torpor. We have to exclude things that cloud our wisdom. We have to exclude things that take us away from the truth. There is a beauty in God's face. There is a beauty in God's countenance. There is a beauty in God's grace. As we enter into God's qualities, that beauty will come in our face. That countenance will come in our face. That truth will be shown through us. And we will be able to walk in the world and be an aid and a guide to others because we comprehend that which is correct. And we stay away from that which is not correct. The mind will try and turn everything upside down. The mind will try and pull you away from truth. But you can't let that happen. This is what's known as jihad, this constant internal fight between the parts of us that are elementally based and the parts of us that are divinely based. This conflict goes on our entire lives. And unless we're vigilant, we can fall at any moment. So we have to be vigilant. We have to pray that wisdom emerges within us. And as wisdom emerges, and as the good qualities emerge within us, all of the evil qualities will leave us. All that is inappropriate will leave us. There's not enough room for both. Love and evil can't abide each other. But so many of us are schizophrenic. We have our good days and we have our bad days. We have our good thoughts and we have our bad thoughts. We have our easy times and we have our difficult times. Our faith and our certitude and our determination have to stay strong. They can't waver. If you dig a well, you have to dig until you hit a stream. And then when you hit the stream, the water flows. In our search for God, We have to hit the truth, and then the truth will flow within us, and the truth will set us free, and the truth will allow us to see reality. The truth will allow us to see the difference between what's right and what's wrong. And may that come to pass for each and every one of us, that we don't waver, that our certitude is strong, and that which is true becomes our touchstone, becomes our way, and becomes our guide. It's all right in front of us. The distance between ourselves and God is minuscule. He's closer to us than our own jugular vein. We just have to believe that He's there. To the mind, hell seems like a very big place. To wisdom, hell is a particle within a particle, and your big toe can smash it. It'll disappear. God's kingdom, on the other hand, is beyond imagination and beyond time and space. When we are in the midst of darkness, we are in the midst of time. When the darkness leaves, there's only light, and there's no time. There's no birth, and there's no death. There's just light. But we have to believe that. We have to know that that's true in a deep, abiding faith. And when that happens to us, our lives will change. We'll be able to deal with all the difficulties that the world gives us. We'll be able to deal with everything, understanding that this too shall pass. There was a king who heard there was a ring that could relieve all of the difficulties in the world, and he thought it was some kind of stone. So he asked around if anybody knew who this stone was, and somebody said, "Well, I have a ring that'll do that, but it doesn't have a stone." And he gave him the ring, and the ring had a saying on it, and it said, "This too shall pass." And we need to understand that everything that we see will pass. Everything that we know will pass. There's another world ahead of us. There is a transformation that's coming. We are going to be saved, but we have to get on the train. We are going to be saved, but we have to take on the responsibility of that work. We have to become our own saviors. We have to become the ones who work towards our own salvation. And then God will join us and make sure that that salvation happens. May it be so for each and every one of us. Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.